Hey everyone, welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. In today's episode, we're going to be studying a piece by the 3D artist known as Garrett Jayordan. In this episode, we're going to be looking at robots as really obedient symbols. We're also going to explore the moment of awakening amidst the crowd and the sheep. So let's jump right into it. So at first sight, we're really at face to face with this lone robot who is raising his head amidst a sea and an army of bowed heads as well. It's, hard not to feel a sense of unsettling or pretty dark composition here, right? So we see this moment of awakening as he looks directly at us. And you'll notice how space is used within the work at hand, right? Our subject is placed within the crowd. There's a little bit of negative space, and there is a hint that these robots go even farther beyond that. There is no doubt also an accent used by both the placement and the use of light within the composition at hand. This, of course, defines our lone subject and makes him absolutely impossible to miss here. Of course, all the other robots have this darker silver shine, but our lone subject is very bright in that respect as well. And you'll notice the colors in this composition really have a base of blue here, especially near the background there, but there is this dark silver and there is a hint of red as well. Red, of course, is a very visceral, very high attention color, so any presence of red within the composition, and it is the rarest color as well, so it's going to draw our eye, especially to each individual eyes here. That's incredibly important when we're talking about this work. It's also a very daunting color palette, right? It is dark, it is dismal, and it's terrifying at that as well. Another thing I noticed is the impact of texture, right? Like I said, you see this shiny silver within the composition. That's incredibly important. Adds a little bit of visual energy and no doubt defines each lone subject as they just go far beyond. It is also very realistic, right? The medium used here is going to be the digital render, so the program used is going to be, I believe, Blender. So, of course, very realistic. We'll talk a bit more about that here in a second. But there's also a sense of rhythm within this work, right? Like I said, you have an army of row after row after row that just stretches far beyond sight. So that creates a sense of visual rhythm within this composition and gives a little bit of pace to that as well. I think that's incredibly important. This also elevates our lone subject, right? He really disrupts that visual rhythm as it just goes beyond. But whenever you get to him, he is standing out and impossible to miss. That's incredibly important here. And I want to ask y'all, how do y'all feel when you view this work, or what was your first impression of this stunning piece? And there is no doubt this lone subject is the main subject of the work at hand, right? He stands out. There is no doubt about that. He is really the staring one. Everyone looks down. Their attention is gazed downwards, but he looks directly at us, kind of breaking the third wall as well. So a little unsettling and no doubt very important in this composition. And robots are pretty interesting symbols, right? They're typically associated with mindlessness and obedience, right? They're kind of waiting for orders given by their masters. So that's incredibly important in this composition, right? You see an army of sheep or an army of droids, if you will, just waiting for their next command. But this lone subject really rejects that notion. He looks directly at us. It's absolutely terrifying. And, these bots stretch out endlessly. So there is this sense of the rare one, the one who stands out and is not as the common ones who, are really abundant. They're made in mass, if you will, mass produced. So there's also a lot of symbolism that plays from that as well. And this rarity is incredibly important, right? He is the one who stands out. He is the one who turns his back against the crowd and decides to look at us directly. And the title of this work is, Wow, You Really Are Just a Bunch of Empty Shells. Incredible. So there is in that a sense of really sarcasm, but also kind of a shock at how everyone else are these sheep, they are these droids, are these mindless, obedient bots, but this lone subject has finally awakened. And you'll notice you can even see this in the eyes, right? Everyone's eyes are red, but our lone subjects are blue, so he looks directly at us, and we can certainly see that. There's no doubt about that. And there is a moment of awakening within this composition. There is no doubt about that. And I want to ask you, what comes to mind when viewing this composition, or what exactly do you think is happening here? I think that's an incredible thing to note. And actually I have two additional works that are very similar to this composition. I'm going to bring those in real quick and see what we can learn. All right, so I brought in two additional works here, one from the 3D or multidisciplinary artist Hames, as well as one from the 3D artist known as Pravesh XD. And this one I actually showcased yesterday, and this one I'm writing about today, so we can get a kind of a jump start or a head start on that, if you will. And so in all three instances, you can see a lone subject being defined against a crowd, right? In all three instances, there's a sense of visual rhythm or an army of kind of faceless men, if you will. We see that in all three works here as well. well. There's also the sense of robots, especially in these two works on the left here. These are much more apparent. You see these droids which stretch endlessly beyond sight. This one is much more reminiscent of these kind of mannequins, if you will, but there is a robot within that as well. And so in all three instances, we have the visual rhythm, we have the kind of faceless subjects, if you will, but even more importantly, we have the lone subject which is being defined against the crowd. He is awakening, he is looking directly at us, and I think that's just so important in these compositions. So this sense of standing out as the one or the odd one out, that's just so important, and we see that in all three compositions. I found this really interesting when I was curating these works. I was asking myself, is this from a TV show or a movie? Because you have all these different artists who are working with a very similar theme, but I think that's just a coincidence. And if y'all know what this is from, let me know. But at the end of the day, it's just absolutely stunning that all three artists are working with some similar themes of the one standing out amidst the crowd and kind of awakening in that moment as well. We absolutely love to see it. So yeah, that's really all I have for today. Once again, I want to ask you, what comes to mind when you view this work, or what exactly do you think is happening here? Pretty important questions. We absolutely love to answer those. But yeah, like I said earlier, this work is a digital render, so it's created in a 3D art program. That program is going to be Blender. Blender is an incredibly open source program. So many different people are using Blender. Perhaps the most popular, or most widely and well-known program used for 3D art. I certainly think that is the case, but yeah, that's really all I have for today. Really hope y'all enjoyed. We talked about so many different things, this sense of visual rhythm, the awakening amongst the crowd, this lone subject with the blue eyes while everyone else has these red eyes, their attention gazed downward while he looks directly at us, the realism of this work, the rare color red within this work. There's so many different things we hit on today. I really hope y'all enjoyed. Once again, remember bots as symbols of obedience and mindlessness. That's really important, and we see that time and time again in a lot of pop culture and art as a whole. So yeah, once more, really hope y'all enjoyed. If y'all did, go check out the original artist Garrett Jayordan. My name's Apollo. This was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see y'all on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.